Before you get started, I know what you're about to say. I said the same thing. I shut down my computer. I was done with my videos, and I get a Bleacher Report notification that the Arizona Cardinals are considering trading out of the 4th overall pick. Now, I was for certain that they were going to stay here and take Marvin Harrison Jr. with that 4th overall pick, first non-quarterback to come off the board. Then I saw this, and I'm like, wait a minute. Say what? There's no way that they pass. There's no way that they pass on Marvin Harrison Jr. But the Arizona Cardinals, they got something up their sleeve. They already have 13 picks in the NFL draft. They traded out of pick number 3 to the Houston Texans. So they've done this before. They've done it before, and they are considering doing it again. So then I started thinking, wait a minute. What if Brad Holmes pulled an okie doke? What if he pulled an okie doke and did what he did 2 years ago? He traded up to get Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, you might be like, well, Derrick, there's no way. And you could be right. But he's done something very similar 2 years ago coming up for Jameson Williams. Now, you can make the argument that Jameson Williams was only sitting at 12 because he got hurt. And that would be true. They were saying he was the first wide receiver slated to come off the board, just like Marvin Harrison Jr. But he got hurt, fell out the top 10. Detroit came up 20 picks to get him at 12. They would have to come up 25 to get Marvin Harrison Jr. As I start painting this picture, it will become more and more of a possibility. I'm not saying that he's going to do this. I'm not saying that I want him to do this. You all know me. This channel was in its infancy stages when I reacted to Jameson Williams when we drafted him, and you guys lost your mind. You lost your mind. And we needed defense at the time, and you lost your mind. So would you lose your mind again if we traded up for Marvin Harrison Jr.? Now, to consider what it would take for Brad Holmes, who's done something very similar, you're talking about a 5-spot difference than how far we had to come up before. So we came up 20 spots. We would have to come up 25 this time, right? So what did the Houston Texans, what would it take for the Detroit Lions to move up to get Marvin Harrison Jr.? Well, let's take a look. What did the Houston Texans give up last year? They gave up they got number 3 and number 105. They gave up number 12, which they got from the Cleveland Browns for Deshaun Watson, pick number 33. They gave up a 1st-round pick this year and a 3rd-round pick this year. Now, they already had 2 1st-round picks from the Deshaun Watson trade. And I can assure you that that's what it would take for the Detroit Lions to come up to get Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, here is the draft chart, Jimmy Johnson's draft chart from 30 years ago, and they live and die by this thing. So right now, the 4th overall pick, if you can see right here, the 4th overall pick is worth 1,800 points. That's a really good number, 1,800 points. If we go down to the Detroit Lions, their pick is valued at 640. I mean, it really takes a steep drop off after you get out of the top 10. It really does. I mean, really, the top probably 5. I mean, from 1 to 4 is 1,200 points. So the Detroit Lions 640 compared to, so you're talking about just under 1,200 points, or just over 11, right? That it would cost the Detroit Lions would have to give up to come up there. So what would the Detroit Lions have to give up? Well, let's go back. The Detroit Lions gave up pick number 32, which is valued at, what is 32 valued at for Jameson Williams? 32 is valued at 590. They gave up 32, 590. They gave up 34, which is valued at 560. So that's 1150. 1150 between those 2 points. Now, again, the Detroit Lions would have to go up almost, I think it's 1,200, somewhere around there. All right. They would have to go up that. All right. So what would it take for the Detroit Lions to come up to get Marvin Harrison Jr.? It would no doubt take, because we're slated to pick late, I don't think the Arizona Cardinals would take 1 1st-round pick. They would take at least the next 2 1st-round picks. So 2025 and 2026. So the Detroit Lions with this year's 1st-round pick would take Marvin Harrison Jr. Next year and the year after that, they wouldn't have a 1st-round pick. they probably would have to give up another pick as well, because the Detroit Lions are probably going to pick late in the next couple of rounds. So if you're talking about, okay, let's see. Let's do the math. So 1,800, Detroit is picking 640. So that is what? 1160, right? 1160. So that's essentially 2 first-round picks at around the time we would be picking. So we would give up, but I don't think the Arizona Cardinals would settle for that. They would want 1 extra pick. So the Detroit Lions would get Marvin Harrison Jr. and maybe a 3rd or a 4th round pick to come up to number 4, and they would give Arizona 2 first-round picks and probably a later round pick. Very similar to what the LA Rams came up to get Matthew Stafford, or traded for Matthew Stafford. Now, let me put this out there. I am 100% defense. Nothing changes. But what Brad Holmes has proven is that if he really does like an individual, he's going to come get him. He loved Jameson Williams. And even hurt, knowing he wouldn't contribute right away, he still came up to get him. Imagine if he feels that way about Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, defense, 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 defense. And if you reacted to Jameson Williams in a positive way, there's no way you would be upset with this. All right? But let me paint this picture. And it kind of gets you giddy a little bit. We talked about how the offense carries this team. All right? I am saying very clearly, I want defense. I'm sick of it. All right? But if Brad Holmes was to sign a Danielle Hunter, a Josh Allen, if he slips through the cracks, something like that, we get a second cornerback. We bring back C.J. Gardner-Johnson. We get some depth at pass rush. And I'm not talking about scrubs. I'm talking about second-tier people. Maybe a Danielle Hunter Epinesa. Maybe a Josh Allen Epinesa. Sprinkle a Van Ginkel. And we traded up to get Marvin Harrison Jr. The offense had to outwork. The offense is what won us games. Who would stop the Detroit Lions offense with Jameson Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs? There is no stopping that. None whatsoever. Okay? So Brad Holmes went heavy on the offense. He got the offense to where it needed to be, right? Top 5. We rolling. Our offense is rolling. There's really no need to add somebody like a Marvin Harrison Jr. However, he's done this before. He's done it before. Is it possible he could do it again? But here's the better question that I want from you is, what would you do if Brad Holmes gave up 2 first-round picks to come up to get Marvin Harrison Jr.? Now, we talked about last year at the trade deadline. How close are the Detroit Lions to being able to trade first-round picks away? And you guys were saying right at the trade deadline that we weren't there. Year 3 of a rebuild. Now the only time we hear the word build is build through the draft, right? So this is the draft. This is how you build. So now you got a rookie deal. You got a third-year player. You paying your guy Amon-Ra St. Brown. So you got you have 2 of the best wide receivers under contract. We would assume Marvin Harrison would be that way for the next 5 years if you want. And then Jameson Williams, who you can sprinkle in there as well, who is off this offense. Now, let's be very clear. I'm not saying that this is going to happen. I'm not saying I want it to happen. The only reason I talked about it is because Brad Holmes has done something like this before. And that's a guy that no one's talking about for the Detroit Lions. I mean, it would be crazy if that was to happen. Crazy. But what edge rusher is going to come off at number 4, right? Probably not even Dallas Turner is coming off at number 4. You'll have some falling in the top 10, but none in the top 4. So what would you do? You saw my reaction. I've taken off my mask. It's time for you to take off yours. What would you do if Brad Holmes gave 2 first-round picks and a late-round pick to come up to get Marvin Harrison Jr. at number 4, and we got a mid-round pick in return? And our offense is, I mean, would it matter after Sam Laporta? Would wide receiver 5, 4 or 5 matter? Would it really matter would it really matter if we brought in Marvin Harrison Jr.? But again, I am all defense. We're done with all this fancy schmancy stuff. If Brad Holmes, you're talking about a core piece. If Brad Holmes was to bring in, and see, this is why you feel those pieces in. Everybody like, I don't want to. No, I mean, would you say no? This is the question that I have for you. Would you say no if Brad Holmes signed? All right, the money went to the defensive end and some sprinkle players, but the draft, he got Marvin Harrison Jr. Again, I'm standing on business. I'm talking defense. I'm not wavering from defense. All right. But your general manager has pulled the rug from under you more than one time. And what would you say if he did it this time for this particular player? I will say this, Marvin Harrison Jr., I believe he didn't play in one of the games in Ohio State. You know, it's Ohio State, not really paying him much attention. Right. And then he didn't talk at his press conference or whatever yesterday. And Brad Holmes likes a certain type of character. No amount of talent is going to get you on this team. So he says. So let me know. What would you do? What would you say? How would you feel? And who would stop this offense? I mean, would the defense matter at that point? I mean, you know, I'm just saying. This stuff is fun, man. It really is, bro. It's fun to talk about. And Brad Holmes gives you that ammunition because you don't know what the guy. Now, if you don't trade up for Jameson Williams, now is this a conversation? Probably not. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I want to thank my members and subscribers. Thank you very much. This channel is possible because of you guys. So I appreciate that. You guys are awesome. Take care of yourself and each other. And as always, go Lions. I don't want no stuff in the comment section either because you know that I could be on to something.